Hi, hello. My name is Zeynep Alptekin. I'm a junior in chemical engineering at UMass Amherst. And this is the poster for my project that I did in Dr. Walsh's lab in the chemistry department called Exploring the Cobalt-Carbon System at High Pressures. So the premise of this project, the background is that now more than ever, there's a need for innovation that supports technological development. So we need a sustainable innovation that can help progress and further our technological development. Um, so for this reason, our lab started looking into perhaps creating a more sustainable type of permanent magnet because the current ones that we use right now, the neodymium-based permanent magnets, are, despite how strong they are, mining neodymium is tragic to the environment. It's a rare earth metal and a lot of labor goes into mining it, extracting it, and processing it. So we wanted to investigate systems that could maybe mitigate the pressure and strain that mining puts on the environment. We started looking into metallic carbides because as a subgroup of materials, they are very important. Metallic carbides are well known for their super physical mechanical properties, their high melting points and mechanical ability to withstand stress makes them ideal for heavy duty applications, and they enable hypersonic flight, earth drilling into earth, as well as architectural applications like they're used in suspension bridges and whatnot. In the metallic carbide subgroup, there is a group of metal-rich materials that take on the form of iron 3 carbon or a cementite type structure. The problem with the subgroup is that they are very metastable, and the issue with studying cementite structures is that there are very few, or if not any, phases that are stable at atmospheric pressures. And for this reason, they're hard to synthesize in large enough amounts to study and really understand their physical properties. And in the cobalt-carbon subgroup, there are no stable phases at atmospheric pressures. The only phases that we know of are cobalt-2 carbon, and cobalt-3 carbon. However, these are metastable and they only exist as thin films and nanoparticles. So we are interested in the cobalt-carbon system. That was the basis of this project, and we're interested in them for their potentially magnetic properties. There was some research done earlier that suggests that carbon may have a magnetic pinning effect on cobalt. It has very promising magnetic numbers from what we could tell, and also perhaps for their catalytic properties, as cobalt-3 carbon and cobalt-2 carbon are currently used as catalysts. So we started off our experiment. We are a high pressure solid state synthesis lab. However, we use computational research as an accessory to our experimental work. So experimental work can be very expensive and time consuming. So preliminary searches help us a lot, and they tell us kind of what to expect and which direction that we should take our project in. So we use AIR's ab initio random structure searching interface with CASTEP to perform first principle DFT calculations. And what this will do is we will randomly sample the potential energy surface of a phase system, and the DFT software will relax these structures into their lowest energy states, and we can deduce stability of the phases from the formation enthalpy, which we calculate against the parental elemental enthalpies. So we started with doing some preliminary searches between 0 and 25 gigapascals in steps of 5 gigapascals. generating about 4,000 to 7,000 structures at each point. You can see this figure here showing formation enthalpy on the y-axis and composition on the x-axis, figure 3 in my poster, showing the convex hull calculated formation enthalpies at 15 gigapascals. And we expected to see cobalt-2 carbon because at this is cobalt-2 carbon here. It is the lowest energy that we see. That is closest to the 0 line. So that is what we had expected to see. The yellow dot is the enthalpy of cobalt-3 carbon if it had been picked up by the software. Because software is just computers computing things in a warehouse a ways away from us, we have to make a lot of adjustments. These calculations can go on for days. We ran each pressure stage for a total of 96 hours. And to get as much data as we can, we have to make simplifications, and some of these simplifications include limiting the unit cell space and number of atoms that we can have in a unit cell, and we limited it to 9 atoms. The cobalt-3 carbon that we eventually synthesized at the end of this experiment and the end of this research study actually had 16 atoms, which is why it wasn't originally calculated by the air system. But we felt that the calculations were very promising. We also did enthalpy calculations plotting the formation enthalpy versus the cobalt-3 carbon and cobalt-2 carbon in steps of pressure. And we felt very encouraged by these results, and we decided to go ahead with the experimental synthesis. So we use a technique called diamond anvil cells, in which we will take flakes containing the elements that we wish to make a compound out of. So in this case, we milled together cobalt and carbon powders in a ball mill, and we pressed flakes, and we tried to get the smallest flake that we could, and we pressed it between the edges of ends of 2 diamonds. And this is a great technique because we're able to apply massive amounts of pressure, theoretically almost up to 100 gigapascals of pressure. And for reference, diamonds are formed from carbon in the Earth's mantle between 5-6 gigapascals in that region. So we can apply massive amounts of pressure. Also, diamonds are clear, which allows us to visually look at our samples, also characterize them in situ during the experiment, and laser heat. And so it's a very versatile technique. And you can see that in this image here in figure 7. So to prepare the cells, we pre-indented rhenium gaskets, which keep the diamonds separated from each other so that they don't touch each other and break while we are preparing the diamond anvil cells. And this is a very delicate task. It takes a little bit of practice. And then we drilled holes into them using an electrical discharge machine at about a diameter of about 127 micrometers. We also had to manually polish magnesium oxide discs. You can see in this image here, we had these frosted glass slides, and we had magnesium oxide in the middle, and we, increasing the grit of our sandpaper, we got it down from 500 micrometers to about 15 by hand. So it was a pretty delicate process. We sent those to the Argonne National Laboratory, where they laser cut circles for us. And magnesium oxide acts as an insulator and also as a pressure calibrant for us. While the diamond anvil cell is being compressed, we don't necessarily know what pressure the sample is at. So by looking at the XRD data of the magnesium oxide, we can deduce what pressure we are looking at. So in April of 2021, we sent out 4 diamond anvil cells containing these flakes of cobalt and carbon to the Argonne National Laboratory in Chicago. And the faculty there were very helpful. They helped us change out the cells, and we had a control setup in the Walsh lab from which we were able to control the heating, laser heating, and also compression of each one of our diamond anvil cells. We heated up our diamond anvil cells to up to 2000 Kelvin, and we compressed them up to 15 gigapascals. You can look at this XRD data here, which is very clean. It's a really great graph. In the black trace, we have the raw data. The purple is the data for cobalt-3 carbon, and the rest of these ticks are the data for rhenium, HCP cobalt, FCC cobalt, and also magnesium oxide. And the gray here at the bottom shows you the residual trace. We had originally expected to see cobalt-2 carbon, but as you can see, cobalt-3 carbon is actually what we observed. So that hinted to us that our original computations needed to be looked at again. And we also did some photon dispersion calculations that showed us that although being unstable at 0 gigapascals, cobalt-3 carbon becomes stable at about 10 gigapascals theoretically. So this indicates to us that pressure is necessary for stability for these phases. And we were also able to fit the volume pressure data to a Birch-Mernigan equation of state. So we concluded that cobalt-3 carbon is stabilized by pressure and that it becomes stable. We also concluded that the formation enthalpy of cobalt-2 carbon would increase with pressure. As you can see from this graph here, we had to account for the fact that carbon also changes phases under pressure. So that's why we have 2 regions of the graph. In each, the stable phase, the stable allotropes use filled circles, and the unstable allotropes use these empty faded circles. Although we were able to synthesize it, and it was a very exciting discovery, and it's a very huge step in the right direction, cobalt-3 carbon is not stable at ambient pressures, which leads us to could inspire future research projects in which we try to add perhaps doping agents to stabilize it at atmospheric pressures, so then we could study the phases. We could study them for their magnetic properties, also their mechanical and catalytic properties. Here's a picture of the double-sided laser heating set up at the Argonne National Laboratory. The system uses a single-sided gas membrane to compress the diamond anvil cells together. There's a steel balloon that gets filled with air that pushes the 2 sides together. And on the right here, this is our group. From the left, that's Paul Marshall, our PI James Walsh, me, and other graduate student, Scott Thiel. We were able to publish our results of this paper in Chemistry of Materials, which was also very exciting. So this is my talk of my research project. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'd love to answer them. And yeah, thank you for watching.